Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Slinging Seeds. I'm your host, Kyle Evans, and across the table from me is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our special guest today is Hanover native, Brendan Rexin. I call him Rex, and I'm sure a couple other guys do. Doug, go ahead and give us a little bit of a background on Rex here today.
Yeah, so I've known Brandon from his time with the Classics organizations when I first met him, and then obviously he's the head baseball coach at Northmont, a school that I care a lot about. My daughter still attends there. All four of my older kids went to Northmont. Love that place. And then he's obviously affiliated with USA Baseball too, which is something that's really, really cool. I think that's every coach's dream.
Yeah,
at least for me, right? If you ever get to put that on, it's different. You know, that's every coach's dream. So that's awesome that you get to do it. You're the right guy to represent our area. Tell us a little bit about how you got that affiliation with USA Baseball and how you got that opportunity.
Yeah, so I met Tony Capel, who's a Cincinnati high school coach. Ran into him a couple years ago. I want to say it was about 2 years ago, and it was just kind of like right place, right time. Like they were looking to expand the staff out. He knew that I had worked in pro ball in the front office capacity, and then had been involved with baseball, with summer in high school, and so. Basically, it was like, you've seen the game from multiple angles, and we're looking to kind of add one more to our Midwest staff for the National Team Identification Series. And so we sat down, got lunch, kind of talked about what that program looked like, and the rest is kind of history. And it's been a blast.
It's absolutely incredible, man. I'm so happy for you.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, like you're, just starting out in USA Baseball and kind of how you've progressed through that time.
Yeah, so I'm in my second year with them. So the National Team Identification Series is the program that USA Baseball puts together to try and get kids between 11 and 16 kind of on the radar for the national program. And so really what the program looks like is and we're in the middle of our round one tryouts. And so there's multiple round ones around the Midwest. The Midwest region is relatively large. It actually goes out to the Dakotas. And so we've got kind of tryouts, and luckily I don't have to go all the way out there, but there's about a half dozen, 6 to 8 tryouts that we're doing here, kind of in our, tri-state area, tri-state region. So we're in the middle of those. And then once we wrap up with the first round of tryouts, then we'll go into the second round, which is actually in Rantoul, Illinois, right outside of Champaign. There's a great complex out there that we do kind of the second round. And then from there, we kind of put together the teams, and then in August is when it really gets fun. You get to go out to the National Complex in Cary, and they basically pin all 6 regions of the United States, and you go out and try and win a gold. So, yeah, I mean it's going in my second year with it now, having a little bit more familiarity of what the program looks like, what we're looking for. It's always fun to see all the young talent from our region, and so and then, out in Cary, it's like I was out there for like 2 weeks last year, and, it's just, that's the Mecca. I mean, it's cool to be, coaching on the same field that, you got guys like Trout and Mookie and guys like that are playing on. It was fun watching Jackson Duncan, play for UD on that same field a couple weeks ago. So, so it's been fun. I mean, it's definitely cool to be a part of the national program, in a small role, but it's still neat to rub shoulders with some of those guys.
Yeah, so with you being kind of like the head at Northmont, with you being the head coach there, and then also doing some coaching in the summer, also I believe you run an advertising company as well. How do you balance all of that with USA? And we all know balance isn't real, right?
Balance doesn't exist in our world.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the reasons that I started my business 5 years ago now was because I wanted to have a better balance. I mean, I worked in pro ball for 10 years in the front office capacity, which is actually what brought me here. I was working for the Dayton Dragons. I moved all over for multiple years. I was in a different state almost every year, and so when coaching kind of became an option, I never expected to coach. I knew that after college I wasn't going to continue to have an opportunity to play. So how do I stay around it? And naturally, it was let's go work in the front office.
Yeah.
And then when I was in Milwaukee, I worked for an ownership group that had a summer program. And Griffin Dorsing, who was at NKU for many years and was just a stud and then went to Oklahoma State and got drafted by the Padres, was on that first team, that I had an opportunity to coach with. And just fell in love with it. It was kind of one of those, like, this is what I need to be doing. And so trying to work in baseball while you're trying to coach baseball and, coach in the capacity that I wanted to just got to be really hard. And so when COVID hit and the world was turned upside down and
Yeah.
the Dragons had furloughed everybody, I just kind of made the decision that I think this is God's way of telling me it's time to go do something else.
Yeah.
And so I kind of gambled on myself, used some of the connections that I had to start my business, and 5 years later it's going well, and it allows me the opportunity to be up at the high school at 2 o'clock to get set up for practices, or to take kids on recruiting visits, or to go to Cary for 2 weeks in August.
Yeah.
It allows me to kind of have that balance. And now I'm a new father. I've got a 3-month-old at the house. And so you're talking about balance. That's one more
Yeah.
piece of the equation, which has been an absolute blast. But yeah, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit about USA Baseball. I mean, I know you guys are going through the trial circuit right now. What's coming up soon, right?
Yeah, so
Obviously, it's this Thursday. So, what do you have coming up?
yeah, so this Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. At the Bodome over in Columbus, we've got kind of our last close area tryout. There's still some spots available. So, one of the things that I've really tried to do for our area, because there is such an incredible amount of talent here, is try and use my connection to our area high school coaches, our area summer programs, to get kids better represented from our area on the national stage. And so this Saturday, like I said, it'll be a round one tryout. I would encourage anyone who's out there from ages 11 to 16. If it's something that you at least want to pursue, I would give it a shot. I think it's fun. I think it's an opportunity to kind of benchmark yourself against other kids your age, from kind of all around the state, and immediate states, and kind of see where you're at. And again, like, we typically are, I would say anywhere from, roughly 40 to 50% of guys at round one will get invited to a second round, at ballparking.
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity to kind of just start that process. We had a few from our area last year, but that was kind of my focus this year is I want more than two.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too much good baseball players around here for that to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Brady Whitaker speaking about the experience himself, saying that he had an amazing time, and it was also a great experience in learning. Leading into that, tell us a little bit about, Northmont, city of Inglewood, and I mean, and Clayton as well, right? And tell me what that place means to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a place that before I took the job, I didn't know much about. I mean, I didn't know much about high school baseball in the area. I mean, I was strictly, working for the Dragons and coaching in the summer. And so, when the job opened up a few years ago, I was kind of encouraged to throw my name in the hat and, went up there. And to me, it felt a lot like home. I mean, I grew up kind of in a smaller town, country area, farmland,
Yeah.
really tight knit community, and that's kind of what I see there. I mean, it feels a lot like that, and frankly, they gave me an opportunity when I don't know if I deserved it. I mean, I came in with someone who had zero high school experience, and to take over a program that had been as historically successful as Northmont had been, under Coach Harlow. Was intimidating, and I'd be lying if I say I didn't have some imposter syndrome in my first year. I mean, we struggled a lot my first year, and with guys like Ben Zink and Jackson Duncan on that team, like a lot of talent. And there was a lot of self-scouting after that first year of like, am I the right guy for this? And I'm lucky enough that we've got, a great young coaching staff of guys who know what they're doing and are willing to kind of put in the time that I ask of them. And so I'm positive that we're trying to get that program back to what it was.
One of the things I love about that in that first year, you talk about self-reflection, and that's kind of where our relationship grew.
Yeah.
Because I'm very tight with a lot of the guys that I'm around.
Yep.
And of the group that actually played for you after that first year, when I talk to them, it was a rough year, I talk to you and you're like, man, this was all, we got to do this better. I got to do this better, right? But when I talk to the players, they said he's the right guy, right? Ben Zink, Jackson Duncan, even Tanner Linhart, right? Like those guys came to me and said they got the right coach. Like they bought you, they believed in you.
I mean, even from our previous episode with, I mean, some of your current players with Drake and
Absolutely.
they say that as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're
So
very
it's like
bought in.
that first group where you felt like, oh man, this is a disaster. I got to fix it. I got to get better. All those players said something different. They all said that's the right guy. I would run through a wall for that coach. I love him. That's when I started reaching out to you more because I was like, okay, this guy's legit. Like
Yeah.
these, because the players are never wrong, right?
No.
If the players love them, there's something there that you might not see yet.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I appreciated about you was all the players were saying the right things, but you still self-reflected on what you could do better, and you can see the program growing and it's coming, which is just a high level of respect for you in that regard. So I just wanted to say, like our players that played for you, they never say a negative word about you. I know Ben still talks to you regularly.
Yeah.
I know Jack still talks about you regularly. So it's just one of those things that one of the first quotes I ever heard in coaching, and I know it's a Teddy Roosevelt quote that kind of got spun, but Coach Jerry Sawyers, I don't know if you know
Oh,
Jerry,
yeah.
Yeah.
he said, just remember, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Love first, teach second. And I've tried to base my entire coaching career off that, and you do that as good as anybody in the area. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate the words. That was one of the big things that like when I came into the program, I was kind of tasked with rebuilding the culture. I mean, that was, and I know that's a hot button word. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but that was really what our athletic director and our assistant athletic director, who had been around the program and as an assistant coach under Coach Harlow for many years, was like, we've got to get this back. And so my athletic director, McCall Harding, has been behind me 100%, as far as like doing as much as they can, kind of saying like, this is your program, do as you see fit. We don't want you to feel like, you need to do the way Coach Harlow did. And I'm very thankful for Coach. I remember my first year, I was up at the field just getting ready for a game, and he comes up in his Mustang as he does, and just says, "Hey, I know you're going to hear a lot about what I did when we were here." He's like, "You can't think about that." He's like, "I want you to do it your way." And he's like, "And I'm going to support you that entire time." And so from year one, like you said, I mean, going through a lot of those struggles, like to have that support from a guy who, was there for 34 years and never had a losing record.
That's refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty awesome. And so, I think to get that culture in place, like like you said, you gotta the guys gotta know you care, and I think that was one of the things that as I was building out my staff, was we really started to emphasize like we've got to have good relationships with these guys, because I think as you guys know, like the player to coach relationship has really changed from when I was a player at the high school level to where it's at now. And so to make sure that these guys know that like it's I don't really, I mean, I do care about what you can do for the program, but I'm more worried about how are you as a person? How can I help you? How can I be of service to you to put you guys in a position to be successful? And on top of when you got a great group of kids that work their butts off and they're just fun to be around, like it makes it that much easier.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Coach Harlow, and he doesn't remember this because we've had multiple conversations. I went to his like kids camp, his Northmont youth camp, when I was in fifth and sixth grade.
Yeah.
Like way back before I ever even moved to Miamisburg. So it was really fun when he was at Brookville. I got to coach against him a couple times, and I tell you what, I've been doing this a long time. When Coach Harlow came and patted me on the back and goes, "That's a very well prepared team." Like I was like, "Thank you, sir." But in my head, I was a kid on Christmas. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Coach Harlow just gave us a compliment.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
No.
So let's spin it a little bit to now to this current team. Obviously, last year you played a bunch of young guys.
Yep.
You're trying to grow the program that way. I know there's a lot of excitement around Northmont in the GWAC this year. Tell us a little about the current team and what you're going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, with as young as we were last year, we struggled, right? But that was to be expected, And I think like, starting out in Florida as we did, like we had a rough week down there. But we came back and we kind of evaluated it, and really the thing is especially with those sophomores now, junior classes, that was kind of the first time that I would have expected them to struggle as that length of time as they did. Because it's like in the summer, they're the dudes on the field, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're the guys, right? But when you're going up against, senior GWAC, Division I type talents, you're going to struggle when you're 15 and 16 as a sophomore in high school. And so trying to get them to understand that, like, I'm not looking for you guys to come in and light the world on fire. If you do, great, that's a bonus. But more so, it's a matter of getting them ready for this year. And so I think with a lot of the struggles, and we were in every game last year. I mean, there were no lopsided games. There were some good games won. There were some close games lost. Um, but I think with that core group being young, and on top of it, there's a bunch of guys that are surrounding, those that junior class, which gets a lot of hype, and I think rightfully so. But I think on top of it, like, we've got a senior class of guys that have roles, that embrace those roles, and that just work their butt off. And again, like they come in with good attitudes. They come in with it's more about the program than it's about me. Like how do I make the program a success, even if that means I'm having a rough day. And so yeah, it's now that we're kind of back into the team practices, following tryouts, and getting into our rhythm, like you just kind of watch and you're like, man, we've got something here. We've got something here, and that's where me as a coach, like I'm not trying to do something stupid and mess it up for him. But no, I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, my role with Fairmont, a lot of the times if I have free time, I'm asked to go watch games, and I take the liberty of going to watch your games because I love watching those Northmont guys, and then I also have like a decent relationship with you and your coaching staff, with Anthony Turner and Jordan and all those guys. But what I always noticed is like the in-season growth. In the beginning of the season, it was a little rough start, right? And then as the season progressed, I'm just watching. The execution is a lot better. A lot of things like their morale. So I think that everything that I take away from coaches is usually the good thing, and I feel like that's something that I try to latch on to when it comes to playing you guys is watching your growth and watching how you progress throughout the season. I'm just like he applauded you. I want to applaud you for that as well. It's
I
definitely
appreciate it.
awesome to see.
Let's talk a little bit about. So you go to the same place we do for spring break.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about.
Jealous, by the way.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Let's talk about going to the Jackie Robinson Complex in Vero Beach. Let's talk about this year how you're going to approach it with scrimmages.
Yeah.
Last year was the first time we've ever played games there. We've always played scrimmages there. So how are you going to, because our spring break's always so early, how are you going to approach playing 4 scrimmages in there, but then also getting to open your season because you're there long enough?
Yeah. So, first of all, I can't say enough about the complex. But before I got there, Northmont had gone to Fort Walton, and then before that, Cocoa Beach. And so, like, when COVID put a hiatus on some of those trips, it was like, first off, I was looking at how Coach Harlow did it, and how there was a lot of weight put on the wives of the coaches, and I look at my staff, and at the time there was one wives of a coach. It just, so we started looking at like what makes the most logistical sense, like where can we essentially get that experience of going south, but make it easier so that the people who are going down, the parents who are going down, can just enjoy it. Like they're not going to be tasked with having a bunch of additional responsibilities while they're down there. And we came on a Jackie Robinson Complex, like it literally checked every box for us. We get to stay in a player dorm while we're there. So, you get our JVA and our varsity guys are together the entire week. Every day we're getting basically 2 hours of field practice, 90 minutes in the cages, an hour in the weight room, and then, either a scrimmage or a game. And so, like this year with OHSA pushing back the start of the season, our district didn't adjust it kind of based on the feedback that they got this year. But it really didn't impact whether or not we were going to go or not. And frankly, for me, like I've never got more than 2 scrimmages in anyway, because I feel like every year you schedule them, it rains, you schedule them, it freezes, and so I've never gotten more than 2. And frankly, I think it's going to make the trip better, because in that way, like, guys who may not get as much playing time in the season will get an opportunity to get on the fields and things like that down there. And it gives us an opportunity to see what we got, get some guys that are maybe younger or maybe starting off on JV, like get them some innings and kind of see see how they stack up against varsity competition. And so, we go down there, like Monday will be our first scrimmage. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we'll be scrimmaging. And then, like you said, Friday we'll open up. We'll probably start our 1 guy on Monday, start our 2 guy on Tuesday, give them a couple days rest. And then, throw the kitchen sink at them on Friday and try and end Florida with a win, and then we come back and we start playing on Tuesday. So it's kind of a good break to where we're not, jumping right back into it once we get back on Monday. So yeah, I think it's going to be an awesome experience. The weather's great, the facility's great. So we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so you and I coach in the GWAC together. Not together, but we coach in the same conference. With us this year, it's kind of changed where we went from Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about how you want to attack that and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that is gonna play a bigger factor this year actually is kind of related to Florida, whereas typically we're able to get 5 games in down there, so it kind of offloads some of our weekend games that we may have to play, some of our non-conference stuff. Well, because we're only getting 1 game in there, we're having to accommodate for 4 more games, kind of sprinkled in throughout the season that we wouldn't normally do.
Right.
And I think really it's just a matter of I mean, of course pitching is always the how do you structure your pitching, right? It's always easier
That's
said
all we're
than
looking
done.
at.
It's the number one job as a coach.
But I mean I think the thing is like with the GWAC, you can't take a breath for a game.
No.
Like you can't. I mean, there's just it doesn't matter what school it is. Like
And when you do,
yeah, they jump
you
on
get
you.
caught on your on your
I
heels.
mean, so I think that's where, having guys that got varsity experience last year kind of understand the caliber of play and understand that like, we may be playing a team like Springfield who's been, on the come up, but it's like they've still got dudes too.
Yeah.
Like they've got guys and Wayne's got guys. Like everyone's got guys, and at
Yes.
any point like anybody can get it. And so it's really just a matter of trying to get them to understand that we've just got to focus on the fundamentals as opposed to like, and Bill Belichick has this like the nameless, faceless opponents. Like if we play our way, the outcome's going to be what the outcome is.
Right.
But if we prepare in a way that we know how to prepare, if we go in with the mindset of we're going to compete, like the outcome is going to handle itself. Like we can't
Absolutely.
control that outcome, right? So I mean, we're going to control the stuff that we can control, and I think that's what we're doing now. And even more so, like to talk about the kids is like I've seen some of that stuff where they're kind of doing it themselves without the coaches having to prompt them, of just like making sure that we're doing things the right way and making sure that like guys have good relationships with each other. And like each year we kind of have a motto, right? Like what we try and focus around for our season. Last year it was we over me, put the team before the player, right? And I think and we did that well, I think. And this year, it's find the good.
There we go.
I think in baseball, people call it a game of failure, or if get out 7 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer. Like, I think what really my focus this year with the program and our focus has been is to try and change the perception of what failure is. If you're looking for failure, you're going to find it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Call yourself a loser, you're gonna be a loser.
right. So, as opposed to, hey, I struck out, that may be perceived as a failure. Whereas, hey, that was a 9 pitch at bat. Now all of a sudden that's a quality at bat, and that's what we're tallying up.
Absolutely.
Those types of things. So by just trying to get the guys to understand that like there's more good than bad in the game of baseball. Like that's just the reality. So you got to look for it. You got to find it. And I think once you get yourself into a habit of looking for the good stuff, the thing is like when you run into a gauntlet of like Centerville, Springboro, Beaver Creek, all within like a 14-day period, it's like there's nothing we can do. So let's just go do what we've been,
Yeah.
let's just go do what we've been doing the entire season.
Absolutely. Just trying. I mean, it's a game of emotions too.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for failure, those emotions can run high sometimes and really kind of take control of the game.
I always loved what Augie said, where he said it's not a game of failure. He hated that quote. It was always a game of opportunity.
Yes.
It's an opportunity to learn and grow from every moment. So that's kind of how we always try to say. I don't want my kids to talk about game of failure. It's one of the things at Dayton Christian. If they say it, they know the whole team's running.
Yeah.
Like it's a game of opportunity. You get to learn from whatever just happened and move on to the next one. Our team's saying this year's quicksand. I mean, you don't have to do it yourself. Don't fight it. Let your teammate get you out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
like
you know
that.
what I mean? So it's one of those things that we're working through right now. So I feel you right there. A little bit about one of the things, probably my favorite thing about you, right, is the relationship with the players you have.
Yeah.
Taking Dylan Alleman up to Tri-C on his visit. I believe Jameer was there too.
Yep.
How much you still talk to Ben? How much you still talk to Jackson Duncan? What made that a priority to continue to talk to those players that came through your program? And I know you do it with your classics guys too.
Yeah.
And just tell us a little bit about that relationship with the guys when they're out of the uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, that first group of Northmont guys that came to, I mean, that senior, like, they were put in a really tough spot. Like, they didn't know who I was, right? I wasn't a JV coach. I wasn't an assistant. Like, I'm not even from the area, right? Like, nobody knew who I was. And so I think that kind of jump-started that whole process, was making sure that these guys knew that, like, I'm in this for the right reason. Like, I'm trying to support you guys in a manner that allows you to be successful. And so I think with those guys, it was a matter of a lot of growing pains, first year coaching staff, new philosophies, new things like that. Like you're gonna have that. And like you said, I mean, I struggled with it. I mean, there was a lot of self-doubt that first year. But guys like Ben who I mean, I'll give Ben all the credit in the world that first year. Like I believe it was a Springfield game. I got frustrated at the end of the game. I think I kicked a chair, and to Ben's credit, Ben shot me a text that night and says, "Hey, can we talk?" And next day he comes in and he says, "Hey, coach, that guys aren't going to respond well to that." And for a guy like that to have the cojones to say, "Hey, coach, let's talk," like it's not going to work. Like that's the kind of guys you want in your locker room. Like
sure.
there's a level of accountability
That's Ben too. Yeah.
Well, I love how it was done. It
Yeah.
wasn't disrespectful. He didn't yell at you in the moment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It was a one-on-one conversation. He wasn't going to call you out in front of to his teammate. He was going to talk to you directly.
Yeah, and so I think like having that the relationship with the players, like it just I want the relationship to be more than just player to coach. Like I want them to know that like, hey, if you need something outside of school, like there's one of our seniors now. I'm trying to help line up a sports internship for him, or a sports job kind of job shadow days because that's what he wants to get into. And with my background, like trying to utilize some of those connections. And I think ultimately, like for me as coaches, like I've heard multiple people say it, it's like you're gonna realize how good of a coach you are by how many wedding invitations you get. And I think that like
It's the ultimate.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wedding invites as good as it gets as a coach.
yeah, and so like that's kind of the goal. Like I want these guys to know that they're my guy, and we've had guys that may have initially been interested in college baseball and then we're like, for whatever reason it's just, hey, this isn't something I want to do. And try to remind them like, okay, that's fine, you're still my guy. Like, like let's make sure you're going to the right school and we're doing the right area of study and if there's, different things that I can do to help set you up for success in the future, like that's a big thing. But with the coaching stuff or the college stuff, like my thing is if I'm the head coach and I'm not the guy that's advocating the most for my players, then I'm not the right guy for the job. And I think with me working for myself and being able to kind of dictate my own schedule, like it allows me to take guys on college visits on a Tuesday at noon, whereas like maybe their parents can't, get away from work or whatever. Um, and for me, like the relationships with the college coaches, I think now and more than ever with the changing scope of college baseball, like those relationships are huge. And to be able to say, hey, when can we come up? Um, and you can see him and work out or whatever, have a visit, like whatever that looks like I'm going to do that every day of the week.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's that was my next follow-up question is with a guy who works with USA Baseball, does summer stuff, coaches high school baseball. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the college recruiting process that's a little different and how you're approaching it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like at the highest level, the Division I route, like it's a numbers game, right? Like, I mean, the Division I teams are getting older. I think last year I saw a stat that like the average age of a Division I roster was like 21 and a half.
Yeah.
And so guys that maybe 5 years ago would have been Division I recruits, commit,
no doubt.
whatever, just aren't there anymore. A guy like Jameer Ross last year, who the number of coaches that 5 years ago, we'd take him in a heartbeat. Now we'll keep an eye on him at JUCO and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's just and I think the other part of that is the educational part with the parents and the players. So like end of summer, early part of fall every year, like those juniors and seniors that have that desire of playing college, like we sit down with the parents and just kind of go over everything, like explain how many different levels of college baseball there are, what at each level what scholarships are available, and what just what certain things to consider, right? Like I think I'll ask kids, one of the first questions I ask is, geographically, where do you want to go? And all of them like, I'll go wherever there's an opportunity. Okay, well if Alaska Fairbanks calls you, are you gonna is that a realistic thing you want to do? Well, no. It's like, okay, then we've got to start to consider, because I've also seen a number.
I was thinking Columbus.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll be honest, like one of our seniors, Mason Wolf, he's going up to Bemidji State in northern Minnesota. And he's a guy that really was just looking for the right fit. I mean, wherever that was the right fit. And with Bemidji State's head coach being a Dayton guy, had a great relationship with him, and Mason went up there and just like, this is it. This feels comfortable.
Yeah, David Schaefer's my guy, the recruiting coordinator.
Schaefer's awesome
from Lakota. I mean, obviously I coached against him when he was a player, when he was playing for Connect.
Yeah.
And over at Brant Field, growing up with Zach Farmer and those guys of that team. So yeah, no, Davis is my guy up there. We talk all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, so that was a good fit. It's more or less just trying to get the players and the families to kind of understand all the different things that need to be factored in. Like, if you are going to go 6, 7, 8 hours away, like you're probably not coming home for Thanksgiving, right? Your mom and dad probably aren't going to come down and take you out to dinner for your birthday. And some guys thrive in those types of environments where they kind of have to redefine their support system and their friend group, whereas other people can struggle in it. So it's really just about trying to find, the right fit from a college standpoint where it's, educationally, obviously baseball is a part of it, financially, which I think is another big part of it. I mean, what I don't want to do is put guys in situations at colleges that financially doesn't make sense, and I think that's a part that probably in the coaching realm it can be a gray area whether or not you want to dive into that side of it with the families because that can be kind of a taboo topic at times. But I think part of that goes back to just the relationships you have with the parents. Like, hey, I'm just trying to find the right fit. Like, if 60,000 a year isn't on the table, if that's not feasible, let's not look at those schools.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just the educational part of it that's there.
Yeah, so I'm a little curious about how you stay connected with those players when they leave for college. How do you help them, if they're dealing with hard times? Because, I mean, I've got players myself that are playing in college from Fairmont, and, it's like sometimes it's hard to give that advice.
Yeah.
Because you're not there. You know what I mean? But, I just try to put my best foot forward and say, hey, coach is thinking about you, hug from Ohio or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
tell me a little bit about your process and how you kind of help those guys.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so much of it is just especially when the guys that are just leaving
Mm-hmm.
school, it's try and give them a little space right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to inhibit that growth, right? Like they're getting ready to move, like a guy like Jacob Beck, right? Goes up to Adrian up in Michigan, right? So you give them a little time, let them get situated, and then like, fall rolls around like, hey man, I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. If you need anything, I'm always a call or a text away. And like with Jay, because, he's about 20, 25 minutes from where I grew up, there's a couple barbecue restaurants I threw his way. So, hey, if you're looking for some good food, there's, stuff there.
There you go.
But it's just more so like trying to let them know that like I'm proud of them. A guy like Jameer who's going through an injury this year. I mean, he unfortunately is not going to be able to play. He had a shoulder issue, and just let him know like, hey, this is short term. Just more or less trying to continue to pump that positivity into him. And with a guy like Ben, I mean, I feel like his college journey to this point has been just up and down.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
tough.
redshirting and then having his knee issue, and of course, recently finally being able to see him take the field was awesome.
Oh yeah,
emotional. Yeah, for sure.
We had a whole group sitting up front around the TV watching Ben pitch that inning.
Yeah,
and we're all high fiving and stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But so those types of things where it's like you're just more so like letting them know that you're there. Like if you need me, I'm here. Luckily now, and I can't think of there's a program that I saw at ABCA where it kind of allows you to get stats emailed to you every day from your college guys. So like, it's like $30 a year. I'm like, that's the best kind of money you can spend. It's like every day in the season, I just get an email sent the kind of a recap of like all my guys in college, and it's just their stat lines, right?
That's awesome.
I need to figure out that.
Yeah,
I'll happily share it with
that
you.
link.
Yeah.
I'm paying for that today.
Yeah, I mean
Me
it's
too.
awesome. And so like because I mean we're in season, right? We're not able to catch watch as much of that as we can, and obviously with some schools being harder to find live feeds or whatever, that at least gives me the numbers to where like I can fire off a text like, hey man, looks like you had a good day, or hey man, rough outing, brush it off. You're definitely capable of better, and those types of things. And so for me, it's just texting. It's letting them know I'm there, letting them know I'm proud of them, regardless of what the baseball side is saying. What the numbers are saying. And then I mean, we see Ben pitch last week, and he shows up to practice on Monday at Northmont and just hangs out. I mean, so it's cool to have that. It's cool to have guys like that. And I mean, shoot, going down to Florida, we've got last year we had like 6 or 7 former players make the trip down to Florida just because they wanted to be a part of it.
It's awesome. So. We have when we're going to Florida this year, Sam Worthy, who's probably the best player in Dayton Christian history.
Okay.
He was a 2015, has all the records in the record book, a lot of them anyway. He moved with his wife. He moved down there an hour away, and he's coming to speak to the team via pitch.
That's awesome.
So that's
great.
That's incredible. Like,
Yeah, this year, what we've done at Fairmont, I've kind of like Matt and I have recreated a challenge, kind of like you see the Omaha challenge and stuff, and we're gonna put these boys through a lot of different athletic events, baseball events, and at the end of it they do a bird trot, which is about 1.25 miles. And after all of that is done, we have an alumni breakfast. So we bring a lot of the guys that come in,
cool.
like Austin Warden, he's got the RBI and doubles record for our school. A lot of guys, and it's just to be able to have that culture, bring that back, That was really important to me. So to see you guys kind of have that same same thing, it's
Yeah,
really
I
important.
mean, outside of the link that I'm going to need for that app
Yeah,
that
no,
you mentioned,
absolutely, man.
that saved me 2 hours every morning where I go through every
Yeah.
website, seeing what each person
Yeah,
did.
it's and again, I wish I could think of it because it is
Oh,
an
you're
awesome
fine.
app.
I'll reach out to you though. But so a little bit, one of the things I want to follow up is so obviously you have a huge 26 class that plays in our program that's
Mhm.
also with you at Northmont.
Yep.
What are the differences that you've seen with that group from sophomore to junior year? Talking about some leadership stuff, but what do you see the difference in them over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think physically, they're just getting bigger, and I think one of the things that we've done at Northmont is really try to prioritize nutrition. So like I brought in a nutritionist to work with our guys.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Yeah.
And I think that's just good information regardless if you're an athlete or not. But I think with guys that are working hard, that was an area that I didn't think was being touched on enough, if at all. And so, I had a good relationship with Sarah Kittle, who's our nutritionist, to put together something that is feasible. It's like guys are going to go to fast food restaurants. That's just what high school guys do. So, like to be able to put together like a list of like, hey, if you're going to go to Chick-fil-A, get this instead of this. And then something for parents where if you're going to go grocery shopping, instead of buying this, buy this, right? And so prioritizing the nutrition side, and I think those guys have taken advantage of it. I think they've understood that like we need to be eating the right stuff at the right time. Now we're getting into season, like that's even more, more important. So I think that's probably the first part. I think the other part is just the chemistry. Like you said, I mean, there's a core group of those guys that play for you, but there's just as many guys in that class that are as talented that are in other programs.
Yep, for sure.
And there's no cliques. Like everyone's like one cohesive unit.
Yep.
The guys like what was it, Friday? I think it was Friday after practice, a bunch of them went to beat ups together.
Right.
Like completely unprompted, like
Yeah, our boys are like sub house bingo.
Yeah.
Like they got
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
They have that scheduled.
So I think when you have that chemistry off the field,
Yeah.
it just makes that chemistry on the field that much
Makes
better.
it so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things I always love is when I see the Northmont guys, and I only see the ones that train here, and there's some that don't play for us that train here, but they all love each other, they all joke with each other, they all got each other's back, they all walk in the door together, they all leave walking out the door together. It's really cool to see from the outside.
And I think the other part of that has been really neat to see is that I think because the way high school baseball is played in the way summer baseball is played, it's just they're two different types of baseball.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
six-sport.
one's not better than the other. They're just different, right? To where the idea of the team first mentality, where I think in summer ball, if we aren't keeping ourselves in check, it's very easy to just start looking at our own individual number, like as a player standpoint. That's not there. Like those guys understand what we're doing. They understand that, the base running stuff that may be foreign to them, the more they do it, the more that they realize how it can weaponize, guys who may not be a Jameer Ross that's running, a 6'4".
Insane.
Yeah, but so I think that part of it is just like, hey, we've got to figure out what these roles are, and let's really try and buy into these roles and maximize those types of things. And I think lastly, I mean, the other part of it is the emotional awareness, of I think those guys understand how it's a lot easier to try and maintain an even keel as opposed to going up and down and kind of riding that roller coaster. A couple years ago, I mean, I feel like when they were like Drake Sauber and Brady Whitaker when they were freshmen, we gave them some time toward the end of the season, some varsity experience. And you saw, I mean, they were young. I mean, they're 14, they're young. And at times the emotions kind of got the best of them. But over the last couple of years, you've seen that awareness of where like every walked batter isn't the end of the world. Every single that we're giving up or every maybe misread fly ball isn't the end of the world. And so just having them be more aware of their kind of emotional state, and trying to live in that positive mindset as opposed to allowing that, like that's been, I think, more fulfilling than anything.
Yeah, the growth and development with those guys it's unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, even Brady Cannon, right? Well, we talk about Cannon as like
underrated
underrated
Yeah.
player.
So underrated.
It's been I'll say with BC it's been fun because like one of the things that we do in our off season. I mean, with the space we have, we do a lot of small ball type stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean BC has worked his butt off to try and be able to lay down bunts.
Yeah.
And I'll talk smack to him all day, and he'll throw it right back at me.
Oh yeah, he does.
But that's fun. I mean, that's what a good relationship is. Like,
Yeah.
I would do anything for BC, and so for him to try and put time into something that may not be as sexy as gap shot doubles,
Right.
when working on those, which he's very capable of, and obviously on the bump, has got a cannon.
Special.
He's working on the small stuff. Small stuff that he knows that he's going to be asked to at some point to be able to do that.
Obviously, a couple weeks ago, your 4 guys, that junior class, did a pod here. Did sat in the same seat you're sitting in.
Yep.
What was it like to watch that? And what were your opinions of their answers? And give us a little bit about that.
It was fun. I mean, it's fun to see him. I mean, you could tell, and I think Kyle actually kind of, hey, let's just relax.
Yeah.
It's just like, but it's cool to see, like, it's outside of their elements. Like, that's one more thing. Like, as you got deeper into that episode, like, you got to see him get a little more comfortable with it. And, to hear him talk about all the guys that they, play with in the summer, they're around training. Like, it's cool to hear them talk about guys, just as a admirer.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just kind of a proud thing. Like, they're seeing the hard work that other people are putting in and they're recognizing it. So, like, that's a cool coaching moment, right? Like, where you're proud of them for that kind of stuff. And some of them was, you just kind of gotta laugh at the answers.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I mean, it was fun to see him do it. It was fun to, it broke up my day of work to where I've got it on one of the screens and it's just kind of going. And every once in a while, you get a good chuckle because Welchie decides he's going to say something, right? But no, it was cool, man. I like that group again. Like they love each other. You can tell they love each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They speak so highly of you guys in the facility and all the work that gets done here, and they're excited to come here. But no, it was a fun episode to watch. It was fun to see the personalities kind of shine because as a coach, I don't always get to see some sides of those personalities. I feel like the more we spend time together, the more you get to see some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But you saw a little bit of that I hadn't seen before, so it was neat. It was fun.
Yeah. And I think being on this show a little bit, especially for the young guys, because it's not just them. We've had a couple other guys that are college guys, and they're a little nervous too. I think it kind of helps with that, like that on-field nerves, because you get it sometimes, and being in here, it's no different. But it's really just an iPhone. You know what I mean?
Well, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
and like one of the things that I like that I say we as a coaching staff would try, like, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. And so I think doing stuff like that, stuff that like this show, it gives guys an opportunity to step outside of their comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And I think anytime you step outside of that comfort zone, you grow as a person.
Yeah, you tweeted about that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that I remember it, but I retweeted it right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, this, you do have to step outside your comfort zone.
Yep.
A little bit different. Within your comfort zone, hopefully now you're a new father.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that experience and how that's working.
Man, it's awesome. I mean, being, the entire process of my wife being pregnant, like, it's awesome. It's gonna change your world instantly. And
It
I
does.
mean, and it did. And I mean, my wife Carly is a rock star. I mean, throughout the whole pregnancy, and she's holding it down now. I mean, it's tough on her now because he's 3 months old now, and we're going into baseball season, and she's having to carry the weight, right? I mean, but it first off was really neat because he was born on my birthday. So we share a birthday, which is really neat, So I think there's, the firstborn and you share a birthday, like that's just cool. We came up with the name for Brooks Robinson. One of the teams I got to work for, Brooks Robinson, was one of the co-owners, and so I got to spend a whole day with Brooks. And he was just an awesome person. And so, like, as we're putting names together, I start honestly open up the Hall of Fame book, like what names are there, and I threw it out there, and she's like, I don't hate that one. So no, I mean, but it's been awesome, man. It's like, especially now, with some of the, you guys know, I mean, the first week or two, it's like you're handing out uniforms and you've got the parents meetings and you just got long days, and we're in the process of onboarding a new freshman coach. And so I've kind of had to play double duty from a coaching perspective of running 2 different practices. And you get home late, and you got a little man that's just geeked to see you.
Oh,
dude.
Yeah.
And he's in that stage now at 3 months where he's just smiling and grinning and cooling and laughing, like, yesterday was actually his first day at daycare, so it was a tough day for the wife and whatnot, but it's fun having him around. It's weird thinking that there was ever a time when he wasn't there.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's just but no, it's been awesome, and I can't say more about my wife holding down the fort when I'm not there.
Yes, I mean you and I we're both fathers as well, and it's a graceful journey. I love it.
Like, and as we've always talked about, the toughest job in baseball is the coach's wife.
His wife, yes, sir.
100%, and I'll give her all the credit in the world. Like we started dating October 2020, you know, and at that point I was only doing summer stuff. And I said, hey, if you can get through a summer with me, because she's a social worker for now at Beaver Creek Schools. I was like, if you can get through a summer with me, you'll be far and above the relationships in the past that couldn't make it through the summer. And we got through the first summer, and then the Northmont deal opened up, and I said, hey, I know I said 3 months out of the year. How does 12 months out of the year sound? And again, to her credit, she's like, I think you need to do it because I think it's something you'd be good at. I think, you know, she said, I want my kid to grow up around the field. I want my kid to grow up in the dugout. And I think at times she's maybe second guessed that with as much time as you know, you guys know, it takes you away from the house, it takes you away from your loved one.
Yeah, I mean,
but she knows how important it is.
Yeah.
So obviously the OHSAA made a bunch of changes.
Yeah.
Right. It's different. Still don't. I mean, you know who's in your sectional because there's no other option. I still don't know who's in ours.
Right.
So obviously there's a lot of prep work that goes into knowing the opponents in your sectional, all that stuff. Tell us a little bit about you going to Division II, how that's changed your approach into prepping so you're well prepared when you get to the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it makes it easy because there's only 4 other schools, right? I mean, so from a scouting standpoint, it's like, you know, it makes it a little bit easier to where if you had significantly more, it would have just been tough to. And I think all but one of the schools that are also Division II in our area, I think we've got them on the calendar at some point this year. And so it's definitely interesting. I think for us, it really doesn't change much of our approach because we're going to be tested in the GWAC, and most of the schools in the GWAC are Division I schools anyway. I do think that with our schedule this year, like we've got a pretty wide range of schools in different divisions. I mean, you know, we're playing Newton, we're playing Fairfield down in Cincinnati, we're playing kind of all over. And so we're going to see different types of baseball. We're going to see guys who are playing the game different ways. I mean, you're going to have some teams that go long ball, some guys who play small ball. And so I don't, and maybe that's ignorant on my part, but I don't think it really changes what we're doing. I think it's a matter of you get to the tournament, you got to be prepared at any point. I mean, and I think with the schools that are in, you know, Miamisburg is also a GWAC school who's Division II. We see them twice during the year, so I think it gives us an opportunity to see them. We are playing Sydney and Ryan at Dare. You know, so it'll be a fun game at the Dragon Stadium this year.
Hope I'm off that day.
I hope I'm off for the Oakwood game. I want to see that one.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Early season game. Yeah, and then we've got Fairborn as well this year.
Yeah, we scrimmage them, so I'm excited to see how that works.
So the only one we won't see is Troy, and so it'll be. We'll have some experience with some of them going into it, but you know, I think, you know, we played Miamisburg in the tournament last year, and we had, you know, just played them twice, you know, 2 or 3 weeks prior to the tournament game. So I think it's just a matter of the preparation, and like you said, keep your head down, and as long as we're doing stuff the way that we know how to do and the way that we're comfortable doing it, you know, we can't get to the tournament and try and do stuff that we haven't done all year long.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to work.
No, absolutely.
So it is going to be kind of interesting with only being 5 teams. But I think as far as, you know, how it really impacts, like it makes it easier to kind of scout a little bit. And because we're seeing all but one school, like we should have a good idea of what they're capable of, and where our faults are at going into whoever we end up playing. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, just I think it's all a learning curve for all of us this year because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say it's the same for schools like us, but I don't really think it is. I think it's.
I mean, you're starting in the district semifinal.
Yeah.
Like it's
100%.
different. I mean, you've eliminated 2 games you have to win.
Yeah, and I think like the, you know, kind of having that like buffer week and then the tournament now starting after Memorial Day, that I think that's probably going to be more of a bigger impact than anything, you know, of just, you know, how are you staying fresh kind of in that that time. I mean, if you know, with that buffer week a lot of times being used to reschedule games that get canceled or whatever, like if you end up having a break, how do you fill that? How do you keep guys locked in so that, you know, after a holiday weekend?
So I'm curious, with that being the case, did you schedule 27?
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I would handle that situation.
Yeah, I mean,
schedule 27, or if you schedule 25 and save a couple, you might get rain though.
yeah, well, and that's the thing is, I mean, I figure, I mean, like every year, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we're in Southern Ohio in March, April, and May. I mean, rain plays a massive factor, and you're always rescheduling games, and so it's like let's just schedule 27. You know, knowing that we have, I think from our last scheduled game until our first tournament game, I think it's like 12 days.
Wow.
So like we've got a little bit of a buffer to where like, you know, obviously I would not like to try and schedule games leading up to like that Thursday prior to our tournament game, just to have be
Yeah.
completely fresh. But yeah, I mean it's that's I think going to play a bigger factor.
Yeah, I made the same decision. I went with 27 this year, just because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Everything's changed. So just schedule all your games. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and I think what tends to happen too, like later in the season, is you've got, you know, I'm not sure if you guys run into this, but your non-conference games where the non-conference teams need to cancel because they've got to get their league games in.
Yeah, that's happened.
You know, we've run into that before, so we're
Yeah.
kind of scrambling last minute, and so you know, I think I'm sure you know our schedule's going to look different once we get to that point than it does now. I mean, that's inevitable.
Yeah, that happened with us last year when we were supposed to play you. We had to cancel for a conference game.
Yeah.
Yes, I can- yeah.
So I mean, I think having that break will allow to accommodate for that and try and prevent a lot of those like cramming a bunch of games into a small window of time. But I think yeah, I mean that's probably a bigger thing than anything is that
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely. So, this is a great conversation. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Brandon, I just wanted to thank you
Yeah.
for coming onto the show. I enjoyed this conversation heavily. I think this is going to be a great episode. And Doug obviously is always the same with me. So, if you guys want to see more things like this, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And to never miss a notification on our social media accounts, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All right, boys.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time. Slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.